No, they shouldn't take more than.
Oh, no, I'm okay.
No time at all.
Just wanted to know.
So strategic planning first.
Yep. Okay, Mr. Gonzalez, kick it off.
Okay, I'll call to order strategic planning for Tuesday, March 19th. Let the record show all committee members are present. I will make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous committee meeting, which was held on Tuesday, February 19th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Witt. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No unfinished business tonight. We do have new referrals for consideration. Item A is a discussion on Portland Street, which is a paper street.
Yeah.
Who brought this one up? Alderman Witt, take it away.
Okay, this is in Ward 1. If you go, let's see, up East Spring and then turn and go out Highland, is that right? Am I going the right direction? And then you go up Delaware. There's a little paper street. It's called, I don't know the dating's on here somewhere.
It's on the.
Yeah, Portland. It's not labeled or anything. But it's just a little paper street between where the rehab just built a new building and a little house on the side. It goes all the way through, excuse me, from East Highland to Delaware. So you can go through. There's a gate across it about in the middle. Anyways, one of the owners of a property there, he would like to tear the house down and build a bigger house or build onto his mother's house, but it would go on to this paper street. And he's called me several times, he's called the city attorney several times, and we've explained to him that typically we can't just give away paper streets. So what I'll do is hand this over to Mr. DeCervo so you can kind of walk us through what we've told him.
Ta-da.
Yeah, so this is, we've been down this road before, this is nothing new for you guys. Linda's correct, he contacted both myself and her. You know, this is all we can do is bring it before the council, and the council can make a decision on what they want to do. All we can really convey to him, if you were to abandon the street, it hasn't been our policy to do any actual conveyances of deeds when we abandon the street. We just traditionally would abandon it on the books, and that would be it. If we do end up in a situation where you guys are to consider, you know, granting or doing a deed for the property, all we can grant this guy is the rights that we've had in the property. So without full title abstracts being done, going back to whenever the map was set up and the subdivision was recorded in Little Valley, we're not really sure of what you guys can convey. So generally in that situation, we do a quick claim deed and we say, you figure it out. You know, we let the property owner figure out and determine to his satisfaction whether or not he's happy with the title to what he's getting, and he can accept and reject it or not. And historically, since I've been here, we have not conveyed any of these paper streets to anybody for the very scenario that it creates. One, that question of ownership, and two, the event that you may need that street at some point in the future. I know we look at that now and say that's kind of ridiculous to think that way, but historically we have gone back in and used our right-of-ways on these paper streets, so it's something you might want to consider not conveying it outright. But it's nothing new, you guys have seen these before.
So what's our next step? To just...
It doesn't sound like there's anything, all right? We just tell them no. Is that what you're saying?
Whatever you guys decide to tell them is...
I don't recall what we've done historically, haven't we had, so I know that we've dealt with these scenarios before.
I've had 3 in my ward since I've been here.
That have come before us. So where did we go with those ones again? I don't.
Old Court.
We voted, and I voted yes, everybody voted no.
Okay.
But look at Old Court. We tried to convey that one away because that essentially was a parking lot that.
Was that considered
That
a paper
was not
street?
a paper street.
It was a paper street.
It was a paper street, yeah, but it was wholly contained within that parcel. And he was the only one that controlled all the adjoining
Correct.
parcels.
And then he turned us down on taking it.
Correct.
But
And I think when we look back at the King Street scenario that we had, Had we had a way, or all the adjoining property owners to the paper street, had they come up with a compromised way to transfer the property to everybody who wanted it, or abutted that paper street so that everybody was in agreement how it was going to be disposed of, we could never get to that point with the Green Street issue, and that's why it didn't go anywhere.
And that was the same issue, oh my God, it'll come to me, Park Street. The
Mhm.
3 issues I brought out is there's always an issue on the 3 that I've asked for of somebody being landlocked.
Correct.
Right.
So is somebody because if somebody's not landlocked, I think we should review this a little bit.
Doesn't look like there is though. I
But
mean,
they're not. It goes all the way through to the other street. So actually, there's 4 property owners. There's 2 on each side of it.
And nobody's landlocked.
So if we told this guy, hey, if you go to these 3 other property owners and come up with a plan for dividing that
Amicably.
equally amongst all 4 of you,
He wants the entire,
he wants to be able to go all the way out to
No.
East Highland?
he wants,
Is that East
He
Highland or
wants
is that
this.
East Spring?
and then this person wants this, and they've not
Have
talked to
you
those
looked?
two.
Well, they gotta talk to those 2 or else.
So let me ask you this question. What's the ultimate goal? What is he looking to accomplish?
He wants to make his mother's house bigger.
So he wants to fix her house up.
Right.
So he wants to improve. I have no idea what the status of that property is.
It's old,
It's old.
very old.
Okay, so we have someone who wants to do a house improvement project, improve the neighborhood, then why would we not want to?
Because he's gotta, we can't just hand it over to him. He's gotta go ask this person and this person and that person. They all gotta be,
Okay, but that's what we communicate to him, right?
That's what I'm
We
saying.
don't just vote it down.
well, right.
Right.
We communicate that he needs to talk to the other owners, and that if they sign off and say they grant their blessing, then we should support that.
Yeah.
And the other thing is to piggyback off John's point, what I've been told in the past, and I've done extensive research, because I've always tried to get these paper streets taken care of, is that it will be up to him then, just like we've done the other ones, to do the survey and stuff. I mean, they could go through,
Title
do their
search.
survey, we could whatever, and they could find a problem with it, and then it's, like you tell them up front,
Right.
that you could pay all that money
Sure.
and do all
Yeah.
the surveys, and then in the end,
Mhm.
we're not able to do that, but at least, it's an option. I mean, we have I think last time when I went through this with Tom, because I was very passionate, we start looking at these, he said there's 99 paper streets, and if they're gonna benefit somebody, or somebody's gonna pay, it's gonna go back on the tax roll, why wouldn't we do it? And in my situations, there was always a landlocked. But I mean, that's what I'm saying, we should consider if they're not landlocked,
Right.
Well,
I
I
don't-
don't think we should just give them away. I mean, when for improvements, like you said, I think that's very fair. But we may have utilities on the paper streets. We may need access on
You
the
keep
And
it
we
in-
don't know that. I don't know that.
I think
Yeah,
we-
in the case of Sardis Pump Station, that's going on Paper Street. We're building it there, so we don't have to, take easements from people.
So I guess I would ask, what is the checklist that this individual needs to pursue? Does he need to reach out to DPW and ask, to verify if there are
Dig
utilities
safely.
there? Talk to the neighbors that abut to the properties and find their interest. Does he need to have an actual physically written, I'm okay with, I don't want this property? Does he need something in writing from his neighbors?
I would suggest that would probably behoove you guys as a council to have that, since you're verifying that the diligence has been done.
Instead of some guy just showing up saying, no, I talked to
Yeah.
him, we're good,
Yeah.
we're good.
But one of the things I think
Yeah.
you brought up, in all my situations, Tom went out first, so maybe you should, because he nixed it on one of them
Yeah.
there. So maybe you should go first, check out the facility, and then,
Then we can follow through and give him a list of things he has to do. I know on the one side they use as a driveway because they pull in and park behind a house, so they're already using part of it. But I don't know, as far as utilities, I have no idea.
That's the driveway off of Prospect, Linda?
No, this is a driveway off of
South Delaware.
Delaware. It's the next little street over. It goes parallel with Prospect.
and don't you have to access that from behind, front?
Hmm.
Because there's, how there's grass space on Delaware, and then it
Right.
picks up again, off of.
It's on both sides
Elmer.
of front.
Yeah, because part of Delaware is a paper street.
Right.
Because this is not even a road here.
No, that's,
Right, you
yeah,
have
it's
to
all
access
wooded
it
area.
out front.
That's why every few years you'll see those Delaware vacant lots go up for sale
Right.
at the tax
There's
auction.
actually a couple of them marked right now for sale. Or you can come down
It's
Alder
landlocked.
and go on to
Right.
Delaware
So
that
we
way.
behoove the people that own these
And so
houses
is
to
it
buy
that
it
off-
to expand their lot.
Alder?
You would be able to
You're
charge
going
their
down
property
Alder,
line because
you
technically
go down
Paper
Delaware,
Street
it's
would
about
divide it. So you
4
wouldn't get any
houses
benefit
where the
other than
rehab
you own
center
it,
they
and
built.
no one's gonna bother you by
It's the
utilizing
little
the
paper street right beside
Or you
them.
don't
It's the
have to
house
own
on the
it,
other
and no one
side.
else is gonna own it.
True
So
story.
then you have to pay for it.
True.
That's a little clear.
Okay,
It zigzags
good
with
deal.
The street. So, do we want to just postpone this until Bob gets back to us with any concerns?
Do we need to postpone a discussion?
Nope.
No? Okay, we'll just hold it.
Good deal.
Okay,
That's all I have.
discussion is over. We don't have any committee reports to approve. I did have a request before the meeting to have some public comment today, or basically some discussion. Mr. Felt is here, and he wanted to kind of talk to the committee. Jeff, you want to step up? You want to have a seat or whatever? That'd be completely fine.
Today I'm here on behalf of my little development company called Sunny Olean LLC. Sunny Olean LLC purchased the buildings 106 through 116 West State Street from the Olean Urban Renewal Agency. So you'll recognize them as the bright yellow, the green, and the white building just to the west of the Manny-Hanny. It's a big adaptive reuse project. The total investment will be about $2 million, and we're up to the point now where we need to select the HVAC system, heating, ventilating, and air conditioning system. I'm taking a hard look at a ground source heat pump, and after consulting with Mr. Ring and the mayor, I understand that only the common council, city council, can approve the construction of wells within the city of Olean. A ground source heat pump,
Now, this is not a water pump. This is a geothermic well, right?
yeah, but it would be 2 water pumps.
Oh, okay.
Pass this little thing around, and you can take it up if you want to take it up. You can. I'm not asking for a decision tonight. I just want to inform you that I'm seeking a way to get this topic before the council.
Jeff just sent a letter to me, and I have Nick review it right now. I was gonna wait till Nick reviewed it and then give it to, pass it out to the council, so.
Yeah, I just bulleted some highlights. Bottom line is they save a ton of money, and we're sitting on a huge renewable resource here in Olean. It's the aquifer. Of course, you need to protect the aquifer, and you also need to protect against having water pumped out of the aquifer and dumped into your sewage plant, which is unfair because it costs a lot of money to treat water. So these ground source open loop heat pumps work by pumping water from one well over a heat exchanger back into another well. So you preserve the aquifer and no water winds up in the sewer system. They are super efficient. They're 1/5 the cost of heating with electricity, less than half the cost of high efficiency gas furnaces. They could really make the difference in the adaptive reuse of these old buildings. In the case of my project, we're super insulating, but even there, the analysis looks like a savings of up to $100 a month in tenant utility bills. And you go to a building like, Paul Petruzzi has, and Adam Jester have both revealed the raw brick walls because it looks really cool. I can't do that. It's an historic preservation that I'm doing. Those walls have an R value of less than 3. So I don't know how you can heat them. So this could make the difference. It could really turn on adaptive reuse. And so what I'm proposing is that Sunny Olean do this at our cost, but we do it in a collaborative demonstration project. We'll share well and water data with the city at the initial feasibility stage. That'll cost about $20,000. for Sunny Olean, and then if it looks feasible, we'll build it out, and then we'll share the operating data, and then with that, you would be able to formulate policy. And in the county of Westchester, they're, strenuously encouraging this. And Massachusetts is encouraging it. It's very popular in Florida and Minnesota, other places where, they're big aquifers, because it's a great, it's almost better than gas, because it's perpetually renewable.
These internal to the structure or external to the structure?
Wells would be outside, they'd be like 4 or 5 feet from the basement wall, but then everything would be underground, so there's no antifreeze involved. It's all groundwater in one basement through heat exchangers, out another basement wall and into a well. The only reason we're not going to drill inside is because I didn't think of this a year ago, when I could have actually put a drilling rig inside the building. Now it's framed and there's no room for it. So.
What's the downside for the city?
I haven't found a downside if they're well done, no pun intended. In Massachusetts, the big concern, and in New York State DEC expresses this as well, you don't want to let somebody utilize a one-well system where they pump it out and then they dump the water on the ground. That'll deplete the aquifer. You don't want the water going into your sewage system. That basically overflows your sewage system. You don't want people tapping into it and using it for domestic water, because that's kind of cheating the system, getting around the water and sewer that's provided by the municipality. So I think that what you'll find over time is that you want to have the wells approved to some standard, and there are some standards out there that you could easily adopt, maybe to be adjudicated by the DPW and then periodically inspected, and you could maybe fit that in with rental inspections or some other program. So those are basically, the downside is people can cheat. So as long as you protect against cheating, then there really isn't a downside.
Jeff, is there one set per building, or is it just the one set and it accommodates all your buildings?
My plan would be one well would accommodate everything. That would be 12 apartments and 4 retail spaces. And I'm actually also looking at a water-to-water heat exchanger so that we can do sidewalk snow melt, which is really popular up in Hamburg. If you remember, Laura Hackathorn was a big proponent of that.
Right. They're ahead of us. No, I was just curious if you have one for each building or one.
Well, there'd be a total of 18 heat pumps, but one all the discharge.
Okay.
Be about at full, on a super cold day with snow, looks like it could be 100 gallons a minute. So a 6-inch well should do the trick.
So I think sorry, John, were you
Well, I was going to ask. So the position that it puts the council in is you're not the first individual to come before us and ask about drilling a well, right? Now, obviously, your needs.
But this is not even remotely close to the same type of well. But
agreed. I was just going to say,
okay,
your needs are a fraction of what some of the other requests to build wells in the city, some of which are the city's largest customers. How do we differentiate? How do we pick and choose? Okay, well, it's okay for X use, but not Y use. That's the kind of the, if you do it for one, you should do it for all. How do you see this as being different?
I would probably define it very narrowly as dual wells for the purpose of open loop ground source heat pumps, in order to take advantage of the natural resource that Olean literally floats upon, a huge gravel lake, and then restrict any other use. So it would be exclusively for heat pumping. And you could also put meters on the well out and the well in, and they can be tied together electrically and data logged and alarmed, so that if more water comes out of this well than goes into this well, then a bell rings and the thing has to shut down. And that's kind of the way that Massachusetts goes about it in order to protect their aquifers, because they don't want to deplete an aquifer.
Well, it's not technically consuming water, right? It's a closed circuit.
Catch and release.
Right. The other customers that we've.
But it's a bypass system. It's a bypass of a infrastructure that we provide our residents, that we spend a lot of money on providing our residents.
We don't provide
It's not,
hot
though.
geo water though. That's what he's getting at.
We don't provide heat from the ground. This is what it's pulling the heat from the ground. It's not pulling the water. The water just happens to contain the heat. But
you could put a closed loop in there and pump oil down there to, you know what I mean, in a closed loop to
you know
pump
what I mean?
hot
Like it's-
oil back
Oh,
out.
no doubt.
I think this
I
discussion
understand.
maybe needs to go to Nick for review and
Yeah.
some further. What I'm saying is that I think and Bob, of course, thank you. I think at this point, for us to continue discussing this in
Yeah.
committee is pointless. We need to get Nick and Bob to weigh in first.
Yeah.
Obviously, it sounds,
But I think Jeff's here, and so they were good questions, because this is
Yeah.
new to me, so.
Real quick, Bob, the reason we stopped having people drill wells in the past in our area and went to the municipal water system, I believe, is because our water's toxic, right? In that aquifer, you can't drink that water. I didn't think it was potable. Chromium and a bunch of other.
In some areas.
Oh, okay.
Not all.
Half our water comes from wells.
Okay. I see. Yeah.
Control of the water, control of the aquifer should be public, in my opinion, in a sense. High level.
Gotcha. I was just wondering for Jeff's point, someone stealing water, they steal it, they get really sick, and it's like, well, you should have stolen water. Kind of a.
But that's like saying you're going to tap into your hot water baseboards and drink that water, right?
Well, at first I was always under the impression that our water was toxic, that wasn't
Right.
going through the municipal filtration, but.
Well, you are right. I guess some of our wells have been shut down for contamination, so it is, right, like I said, in some areas it's out there.
Gotcha.
So we'll hand it over to Bob.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay. Since I already talked about committee reports. Anything else from a strategery perspective? Strategery, new word. Okay, I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alderman Adriano. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we're adjourned.
Well, that's what I'm, what if what if in that
Okay, you're
case,
next.
they put it in there?
Exactly, you're right, because you've opened the door.
That's my point.
And they're using it for the complete opposite, though.
Correct.
For cooling. And
Correct.
all right.
Are we already all the way up here? Okay, so I've passed around, passed around an application for your reference, as well as just a kind of a rough draft here. Hopefully you all have the rough draft? Yes? Okay. Of a program initiative to improve and enhance the safety and appearance of sidewalks throughout the city's residential neighborhoods. I don't know if it was about.
You didn't call the order.
Oh, I asked if you. I'm sorry.
sorry,
I'm
it's a new
sorry.
committee.
I'm sorry. We're in a new committee. Okay.
Sorry, Jeff.
I was having a sidebar conversation. My apologies.
I like bars.
All right, so at this point, I would like to call to order Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, March 19th, 2019. Let the record show that all aldermen are present. Unfinished business, we have none. New referrals for consideration, we've got PL 24-19 by Alderman Crawford to establish the City of Olean Sidewalk Rebate Program.
Alderman Crawford?
Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do we all have copies of the draft of the rebate program? Okay. So, I think it was about maybe a year ago, or give or take, that we set aside $50,000 in a capital fund. And is it Capital Fund 150? Is that where it's currently sitting? And that $50,000 is residing there. Now, the initial purpose or intentions was to establish a somewhat of a revolving loan fund to improve sidewalks that individuals could use and tap into to borrow, fix their sidewalk, and then pay it back over a 2 or 3 year time period. That kind of stalled out, and I don't believe anyone came in to take advantage of that. If I'm mistaken, please correct me. And after having some conversations with the mayor, with Bob Ring and Nick, I wondered what your thoughts would be about using that money that has been set aside as a one-time rehabilitation project funding that would go towards owner-occupied sidewalk improvements that have, based on the program description, applicant must maintain property as their primary residence, that there would be a cap, a dollar cap, on how much would be reimbursed. Some of the programs that we discussed, would, in other words, the coffee would contribute something to the effect of like 50% of whatever the cost was. And I think we found that a rebate based on $1 per square foot would be the best way to go about doing this program, and cap it at $1,000 per property. The idea, so what's the concept? The idea is to leverage this $50,000 and try to get $100,000 worth of sidewalk replacement in the city of Olean. All right, so according to the last sidewalk assessment, we have something like $700,000 worth of tripping hazards and like deplorable sidewalks throughout the city. And just like when you take away tree program money, the city stops having a vested interest in repairing sidewalks. Homeowners don't jump up and throw money into their sidewalk repairs on their own. But if we perhaps offered this one-time program, we would get first list of individuals wanting to fix their tripping hazards, wanting to fix their sidewalks, and hopefully really get a dent in the sidewalk conditions here in the city.
It's
like a sidewalk.
Quick note, there's about $29,000 left in that account. It's not 50. We used some of it last year on some sidewalk projects, so it's not 50, it's about 28 to 29 that was charged to that capital fund account.
So who used that?
I would have to get the information, the vouchers or whatever. But,
So people have used it. Have we used it internally?
I can't give you any specifics right now, but I'll get the information.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but we set that money aside for a
Yeah.
revolving loan program, correct?
Yeah.
For homeowners to use, not for the city to use.
It may have been charged incorrectly. I hesitate to say where it went or what neighborhood or whatever. I can get you that information.
I would like that information. That would be great.
Sounds like Social Security.
So how much do you think's left, Fred?
28 or 29, something like
Keep
that.
drop my using the cookie jar.
Was it used for the handicap or the
So
ADA
where did the money go?
curbs? Where they replace those?
If I can be excused, I'll go upstairs and have an
Sure.
answer for you.
Thanks.
It's the easy end of the song. We stole the cookies from the cookie jar.
So the reason I'm bringing this forward now is the idea would be that homeowners would apply for this now during the remaining months of the winter and spring on a first come first served basis, and it would allow DPW to verify that, again, this is not intended to really address well, my sidewalk's old, it doesn't look so nice, I want to put in a new sidewalk, okay, and I'm going to make the city chump up, cough up some money for it. The idea is to go, and we all have them in our neighborhoods, to go after the worst of the worst and incentivize a homeowner, okay, put some skin in the game now if we are willing to also put some skin in the game. I'm open to feedback.
My only comment is that a lot of the places that are the worst of the worst are rental properties where the homeowners aren't owner occupied. Right?
Okay.
Is that, I did just skim this, is there any owner occupied clause in this? I didn't.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Applicant must maintain the property as their primary residence.
So
Oh,
could we add in
fine,
there the owner? That would cover the landlord, because why should they be exempt? You know, they should be, you know.
Trying to incentivize
Well,
people to do
right.
it, not just people that live in the
Like
home.
you said,
And that's
some
kind
of
of a
those-
good point, yeah, I mean, it's a
They're
very
the
good
worst
point.
of the worst. A lot of those areas.
Because you know what, I don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. $50,000 with a max of $1,000 per property could hypothetically hit 50 properties at $1,000 max per property. It could hit 100 properties, right, at $500. So this is kind of a one-time trial basis. Nick, do you have anything that you would add to this?
I think.
No, I mean, I think the rationale was, I think you were trying to reward the owner-occupying taxpayers to
Right.
give them a break instead of subsidizing.
Right.
Agreed.
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
but
I think that's what was the intention.
the intention is to improve our sidewalks, right? Our sidewalks don't care if the owner,
Safer.
Yeah.
right.
Agreed.
Like, they don't care if it's a rental property or if it's a,
Well, one's a
Little old
business.
lady.
One's a business and one's a home.
Right.
And so
Right.
I go
But-
back to what you're saying that though, I
Right.
think we should give
Preference.
priority
Yeah.
to the people that own the house and live there, and I think there's probably more sidewalks that have issues, just as many sidewalks in front of rentals as there are, I would guess, just in my walking.
I'm sure we
I
could
just think
spend every
maybe
penny
we
of it
could-
on owner
Maybe
occupied.
what we could say
Yeah.
is priority given, or maybe it says that, to people who own.
No,
and then
it
make
just
a-
says it
It
must
excludes them,
maintain. It
And-
excludes.
Maybe make a secondary list of, I don't know. I like the idea of it being owner occupied versus rental, even though rentals, maybe the rentals come and we vote on whether there's money left and we give it to them.
Right.
I don't know.
Start there.
Applicants for it. I'm gonna go with Paul. I like the idea of just because the rental property is still paying tax dollars. Essentially, just because the owner doesn't live there, there's people there that can't afford to own the house. They have to pay their money up front in rent, and they still live there. And this gives the actual owner the opportunity to improve a sidewalk, which to a lot of people, hey, a roof is more important than a sidewalk. The furnace is more important than, there's a lot of things that the money will go to first, and this gives them an incentive to put into the sidewalk. And I mean, they are paying the same tax dollars. We still never came up with a number of how many rentals there are compared to owner-occupied homes, and I bet you that number is getting between that 40 and 60 range, somewhere in between. It's,
But I see John's point that it is a business. A rental property is a business. So to that end, should we be funding? I don't know. The next bullet point there being the single-family dwelling unit or duplex. To me, that seems more like something we would want to take out. If the owner occupies it and they have somebody that lives above their garage or in a split, house that they rent out, why would we want to
exclude them.
exclude that? You know what I mean? Like,
But that's their business, Jim. They're making money off
but
it.
they
Sure.
also live there.
Right,
That was excluded.
No, I'm saying it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
right. Like my dad lives in the apartment upstairs from my house, and you know what I mean.
Right.
Like I don't really make any money on
Well,
my dad.
we include
you know.
duplex.
You're saying you shouldn't be excluded.
You're saying we should exclude it?
Oh,
Because the second says it
I'm
must
sorry.
be an owner-occupied single-family
I read it wrong.
dwelling
Yeah,
unit
no, you're
or
right.
Okay.
duplex.
yeah. Yeah, I'm an idiot.
Okay. So can I just play devil's advocate there?
For the record.
I don't know.
We've tried a couple scenarios to try to get people to come in and fix their sidewalks. And what if we put this in place and no one shows up and they still just leave them because they don't want to spend the money? When does the city step up and say, this has to be fixed? I have one on my street and it's like this because there's a big tree that was built many years ago by the city in the subway and the sidewalk's like this. And I know that individual's not going to spend the money to fix the sidewalk or take the tree down. So when is it, I mean, we pat ourselves on the back for being walkable and yet some of our side streets are horrific. So when will we step up and say, okay, we've given you different opportunities, you've done nothing, so now we're gonna do it, and you're gonna have to pay us? I mean, when do we get to that point?
I thought we did that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do we enforce it?
Well,
We do it by
that's-
complaint.
That's the problem, we don't enforce it.
So if you know where they are, Linda,
Oh, I have.
Linda, the other Linda's upstairs. You,
I would
Every one
respond
of
to
us.
that. I get what you're saying. I would respond to that by saying it's a great policy, but it's hard to make that a reality
Yeah.
because we're punishing people for living here. And a lot of people are not in a position to repair their sidewalks. So I get what you're saying, but
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of,
extremely difficult to enforce that or
it's hard to balance.
I would ask, Bob, how effectively has the new tree program been going?
It was really popular at first, so that out.
Okay. All right, but it did get
I
used.
suspect the same, that's right, you'll get a lot of people
I
interested in
wouldn't,
when it's advertised.
I would think this would, people will show up for the party if you put a subsidy out there for a sidewalk repair.
I hope so.
Oh, I would hope so.
And my gut, just looking at this, and I think it would need more fleshing out, is probably stick to owner occupied. Only because when you open it up to rental properties, that are businesses, other businesses might be say, well, I own a business and I have a bad sidewalk, I'm willing to go halvesies, I want it too. You just open up Pandora's box, open up to rentals, but.
here's a suggestion. Anybody who comes to apply for this. Now, what if somebody calls in and says, hey, the sidewalk's a tripping hazard, and in order to remedy through DPW?
We had a letter.
Right. Not in order, but they send a letter out that the sidewalk has to be repaired. Now, if in that case where there's like an action taken by the city to repair a sidewalk, they come to this program. Do they still qualify for this? Correct? If they're owner occupied? Okay. So, I mean, I would say if you just open it up to anybody for they want to voluntarily come in and go halvesies on a new sidewalk, and they're willing to forthcomingly come out and say, hey, listen, I found out my sidewalk is an issue. I would like to remedy this. But if the city had to hunt them down, I think keeping that initial in place where, well, hey, you're not an owner occupied, this is your business, you should have figured it out before somebody tripped. Versus now homeowners stuck here, well, 80-year-old lady doesn't have the income to pay for a new sidewalk in full, but city's going to go halvesies on her. She's being forced by DPW. Well, not being forced, but they're enforcing the law that's on the books that they have to maintain sidewalks. I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
But don't we enforce the law on a bad sidewalk on a rental?
We do. No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying if the business doesn't see it before they get nailed with a citation for it, sorry, you don't qualify for this program. If they want to voluntarily come up front and say, hey, listen, I'm putting money into my rental to make it look really nice, and I noticed the sidewalks are bad. I'm just throwing it out there as just a suggestion. You could stick it with the owner occupied the entire way through, but just.
Hey, the other, just to change topics for a minute here. The other angle that we looked at this was, we looked at, should it be a percentage of whatever the invoiced cost is, or, should we keep it internally to the city? And I think what Nick came up with, is it based off of what Utica does?
Yeah.
Is that right? Is they just rebate a price per square foot. So whether you do the work yourself, get a sledgehammer, break it up, put it in up to code, you get the same rebate that if you went out and hired somebody to do it, okay, at twice the cost or 3 times the cost. So what do we ultimately care about? We care that it's done right, it's done up to code, and it's fixed and it's walkable, right? So it kind of simplifies the process and it makes it easier for codes to verify, yep, the remedy, the problem's been taken care of, and and then the city cuts a check to the homeowner for those repairs. Do you remember, Nick, off the top of your head, what Utica's price per square foot was?
It was 4 and 6, depending on the district. They broke it up and they incentivized it based on different areas of the city.
Okay. $4 to $6?
Yeah.
What's charged? You got a calculator on you?
Yeah. What's one block?
1 block is 16 square feet.
Do you know what we're charging
And-
for a block right now, what our contract price
It's
is? then?
about $200.
So
Yeah.
$16.
That's what I was told.
$16 a square foot.
200 divided by
Contract
16.
price.
Gives you the price per square foot.
For a 4-inch?
Yeah, non-dry.
So like $12 per square foot.
Right.
So 4 to 6 is probably a fair range.
I was just saying it could be 16.
Oh, it could be up to 16?
Well, 16 is the
That-
city's
it's ours
contracted
cost.
price.
And that's the 4-inch thickness.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll change in there.
So if you utilize the
More or
same
less.
contractor, you pay $12.
I don't know, yeah.
Rebate
We'll
for-
do a contract,
Right.
annual contract.
Oh, the price will
okay.
change. No, yeah, they're
Yeah.
not changing the thickness. That's kind of, yeah.
So the different options would be.
Your driveway's gonna be
If
about
the
8
city were,
inches.
if you wanted to do nothing about it and let the city handle it, the city's rate would be currently $16 per square foot.
Yeah, around there.
Right, around there.
Yeah.
For a driveway, yes. 8 inches for a driveway. It could be as low as 6, but
Yeah.
EJ usually doesn't let you slide at 6 inches.
But obviously, it would be a lot cheaper if you did the work yourself, or
We just did
you
one.
found your
Oh, yeah.
own,
Yeah.
you found your own contractor to do it.
I mean,
Yeah.
We did
graded
ours
on
in
2
concrete.
blocks, it's
We-
probably cheaper.
He flagged us. He was like, I want 8.
Right.
He's like, I want to see 8 here.
It's
And we're
not
like, all
free,
right,
it's like
do 8.
$350 minimum fee.
It
Right.
depends who-
For,
who
you
does
have to have a
it.
3-yard level.
Yeah.
Concrete truck.
Okay.
Anything else? from
Well,
floors, like
I'd like to
shipping,
follow up
solid,
with
yeah.
Fred on the funding. Any other thoughts? We'll try to circle back on this either next week or in 2 weeks. Clean it up a little bit. Any other recommendations or thoughts on this?
I guess if we don't use the money, it's just sitting there.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
not.
Or
Or
not.
Maybe it's not sitting there.
Is John in executive session? Hey, did you see that new? See those new sidewalks that went in at Fred's house? I'm just kidding. This isn't Mansfield.
Yes,
No, that's Fred.
Okay, we signing off? You guys good?
Stick straight at that wall as you go.
We have to adjourn.
Oh, I have to, do I have to postpone, or was this a
Oh, yes,
discussion?
we do have to postpone.
I will make a motion to postpone PL 24-19. Could I get a second, please? Second by Alderman Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We will postpone this to, how about,
Next committee
Talk
vote.
to about it next Tuesday or wait until,
do I have to make a formal announcement right now?
Should
No,
we?
you're just gonna go to the next, the next committee meeting.
Yeah.
That's fine.
to the next committee night? Because it's
Meeting.
committee of the whole law.
That's fine.
Yeah, refer to-
That's fine.
refer it.
Just, yeah, postpone it to the next week.
Okay.
That's fine. Give us some time to come up with that. Approval of committee reports. Do I have committee reports? And I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Seconded by Alderman Doherty. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Okay.
Now we're gonna go into finance. Roll call, everybody is here. Approval of minutes from the previous meeting of March 5th. I'll make a motion, someone want a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, monthly finance and bills, we should find those in your box tonight. Unfinished business, there's none. New referrals, A is 2019 through 2020 proposed budget feedback.
Okay.
And I see it's up on the board.
Okay, so I would like to, first off, I'd like to apologize that I didn't get this out sooner to everyone. Life is just kind of crazy and hectic right now, so I sent it out just before the meeting. But if you'll turn your attention to the board, I think what the council tried to do is take into consideration many thanks to the department heads, on their presentations. Very meaningful, always really interesting to hear what they're up to and what their needs are, more importantly. And in the letter, the council's response to the mayor, We have a series of suggestions that ultimately, the ultimate goal is to keep tax increase at 0% this year. And I think it's achievable without that much strain on what the budget asks are. So through a series of deduction or cuts, as well as some recommended moves into the contingency funding, I believe that, and the council is asking the mayor to make these adjustments in order to hold a tax increase at 0%. Ultimately, the increase, if I'm recalling from the budget, to property taxes is about $154,000 in the 2019-2020 budget. Some of the items that the council felt could be looked at a little further. Number one would be the airport runways, a portion of $23,000 that we could take that out of the budget in order to have some further discussion and further analysis on that. And I'm not expecting, Bill, I know I just sent this to you, I'm not expecting any sort of, but if you have any questions, please, by all means. I'm not expecting any answers or thoughts on this. But part of that is we need to, I think, really take a look at the long-term sustainability. Do we want to continue? We're obviously, we have a vested interest in the airport. How do we, continue putting money into it, signing us up for FAA grants when the airport is forecasting larger and larger losses? And also, if we do decide to fund the airport runway, then perhaps we should be tapping into the lumber revenue that was generated from cutting down the lumber a number of years ago. That should be sitting in a capital fund. Number two, as well as the airport fuel, these two items were noted during the department head's presentation, noting that salt wasn't, as much salt hadn't been used over the past couple years, as well as airport fuel, and indicated maybe $20,000 could be shaved out of each of those locations. The kiosks is another area, upon further review of lens analysis, I'm not entirely convinced, and the council believes that we should have, again, another strategic discussion on whether or not this is a profitable venture right now for the city to enter into. And I'd be happy to go into that further. With the addition, we've got some great additions and that the council fully supports. One of which is the additional headcount to DPW, to superintendent of water and sewer, and the other one would be the full-time assistant manager position of the rec center. So with those two additions, full-time positions, that we believe should free up the rec coordinator to be able to spend more time doing the marketing portion for the Bartlett House. That in turn, we're very excited to refund the Bartlett House's operations. That was something that was a tough decision that we had to be faced with last year, and we were fortunate that a donor came in. But at this time, we don't believe that that's a necessary position for that operation. Two smaller deducts would be the city attorney deduct of $2,500. It's a tough, kind of bitter pill to swallow for our our union workers who are earning 1 to 1.5% raises next year, and that's like a 4 or 5% increase to that position. The council feels that's a fairly paid position at this time, and a small deduct that's more in line with other neighboring communities like Cornell. I think Allegheny only receives $500 for their city historian. We believe that it's a worthwhile position. Our historian does a fabulous job, but we would like that stipend to sit around $2,500. So the request for the deductions would be $94,500. Some of these one-time purchases we could move into contingency costs. We support the idea of the traffic signals, the license plate reader, the fire radios, as well as the fire hoses. That comes to about $59,500. And again, we roll that over. We have $190,000 remaining in contingency. if we were to deduct that 59.5 plus the 2 police cars, obviously, as we stated, we're fully behind the idea of adding police body cameras for 38,000. And then one thing I wondered, would we be able to split up the forklift cost, as that was another item that was noted as a big need for our city, into a third, as I'm sure water, sewer, as well as general DPW uses that, would come out around 12.5, zeroing out the remaining contingency balance. So I sent this out to the council for feedback. This is all based on feedback the council provided us with, and it's all in the letter that was provided to the mayor. And if there are any initial questions, we're happy to entertain them. But again, my apologies for not getting this out sooner. But in essence, this meets many of the requests and deliverables in the budget. But we're asking for some of these modifications, again, to really just demonstrate to our residents and our taxpayers that we're fighting to keep taxes as low as possible in this city. So,
I think it's a
Fighting.
good start.
So like you said, having just received these a little bit ago.
I know.
I'd like to
Yep.
take this back to the departments that it's going to affect and have conversations and get back to you.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Any questions?
Is the forklift, is it used for all 3?
That's going to be that'll be a hard sell to take that a third out of water and a third out of storage. Because this is primarily at the city garages where it's used.
What does it do with the city garage? Just
Unloads equipment
Unloads
and,
equipment.
anything that our mechanics are using.
right, just throwing it out there, just to repair like water truck vehicles, or primarily, like, is it just like the heavy equipment for like plow trucks, which wouldn't be water or sewer?
Yeah, I mean, I think an argument could be made that somewhat it could be used in water and sewer, I mean, because that's where we maintain all our vehicles, but.
Right.
Yeah, water sewer trucks are maintained there.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there.
Does it do any offloading of the big sewer piping and water line, any of that type of stuff, or not so
No, I
much?
mean, it's at the city garage.
I see.
all the time.
It's basically to move things, forklift. One of my concerns, and I mentioned this to John, is listening to all the department heads. A couple things that we've kind of left out of the budget is when Greg Piota was here talking about the assessment. We didn't put anything aside for that. I'm trying to think, there was another thing that I thought of.
There is in this in our in the budget this year, though, there is $50,000 in.
For assessments?
Yeah.
Was it 50 or 5? I thought it was.
I thought he built money into the budget.
He
No.
suggested that we think about
Yeah.
it. There's nothing in the budget.
There's nothing in there for the assessment.
He urged that we consider it.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Just items like that, like we're not putting anything into to our fund balance to bring it up to 15%. We haven't budgeted anything there. And the thing with the police cars, we're not funding fleet management. Way back when we started fleet management, and I remember when the state comptroller was here and BWB, they used to always tell us, you have to, not just do this as a one-time thing, you have to start funding these items. So there's really no funding in there for fleet management. We're basically waiting to the end of the year and taking it out of contingency. And they said that's not a good thing to do. So I'm just kind of tapping in on some things that I remember them telling us.
Is fleet management a line item though? Like, is there there's no capital account for that? Right?
No.
Just so we'd have to create one. Just throwing it out there. Just so.
No.
There
He
is.
told us you
Oh, there
should,
is?
you should take and set aside monies for fleet management instead of
Like
just.
this 80, if we use the 80,000 for the police cars, that'll be moved into the fleet.
Right.
Fleet management account, and
There's an
then
account called transfer to capital fund.
Right.
okay.
That's where the line item.
And any vehicles that we sell, the money goes into that account.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've always had that account.
Right, I
What
knew we
I'm
had one for
saying is-
ambulances. I just didn't know we had one for.
Ambulance is a separate.
Right.
That's totally separate. But I'm saying, Kevin, is we're not budgeting for it.
Oh, sure.
We're just using contingency for it, and they told us we should try to get away from that.
Of course, sure.
I'm just reminding
Because these
us
are
of
these
what
are
we've
bigger
been told.
grocery items. These are, hey, we're saving up for Thanksgiving dinner, so we need to start buying the turkey now and the stuffing now, and well, it's groceries. I'm sorry, you guys like the groceries analogy.
Well,
So
don't leave it off the pumpkin pie.
right.
I think we've kind of left out,
Lose me.
and we do it every year. Any other questions on the budget?
Gone. So these are, so there's 2 police cars here. Oh, I wanted to remark on, and I always know that it's a moving target, right? I reached out to Fred and I'm reluctant to say, because I know Fred's reluctant to probably say, but we are expecting a surplus this year that should be able to roll into our general fund, right? We're currently sitting at 14% fund balance.
14.5 to 15. We're just under, we ended the year just under 15.
Right. And with, as long as we don't have any major hiccups this year, projection should be a surplus at the end of this fiscal year that will push our fund balance up over the 15%, correct?
That's correct, say.
Okay, so keep us,
What did you say at the end of March, Fred, you should have a better feel?
Yes, we'll address it in March.
Okay.
After March, we only have 2 months to go to hope it's not
Yeah.
going to be catastrophic.
Yeah.
good. So that'll take care of
April
one item.
snowstorms.
Any other questions on this at this time?
No? You wanna go?
I will, at this time, I'll make a motion to enter executive session to discuss ongoing litigation.
George seconded. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're in executive session.
Oh.
Done that in the past, and it's a mess.
Yeah.
So, public hearing next week, 6:15?
6:15. Yep.
Anything else?
Prior to the public hearing, we have been, Fred and I have been talking about another idea on how to possibly fund some of the water projects. So can we get some time next week before the public hearing to let Bob and to lay out the plan?
Sure.
Like at 6 o'clock, because usually public
Do you
hearings.
need
is
15 minutes or you need longer?
Well, if there's discussion, then we're gonna be longer.
15?
So we start at
Well,
6
wait,
o'clock?
Wait, if we're gonna discuss it, if you're gonna give us a new proposal, limited discussion, and we have to vote on it, are you saying we have to vote on it Tuesday night?
Water sewer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're
They're
changing
talking-
that,
Oh, are you
15 minutes
oh,
isn't gonna be enough
no.
to talk about that.
No, I think he's talking about a different.
He's talking about
something
different, the
else.
water sewer is the one.
He's talking about the
that-
upcoming capital like projects.
Yeah,
So-
that's the 1.5.
so-
Sure.
Well.
Are you
it
changing
would-
the rates?
It would, no.
Okay.
Not changing the
No.
rates.
Okay.
It would change how much is going to be taken out of water fund balance.
Okay.
Yeah, a lesser amount,
The budget.
the budget.
Okay, but the
Yeah.
water rate and sewer rates would
The
stay
water
the same.
rates and sewer rates we're not
Okay.
changing.
So, why don't we meet at 6 o'clock then, and why don't we just, I mean, we don't need to put the public hearing at 6:15, we could put it at 6:25, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Do you need 15 minutes for a public hearing that no one comes
If the
to?
committee of the whole starts late, that's not a huge deal, just can't start early.
Right,
So yeah,
So just-
6:25 is.
just put the public hearing at 6:25.
You
No,
want me to
I
double-
lied, I already published.
Can we
The
say
publication
Oh, you
already
did?
had to go out.
Oh,
Why
I'm
don't we
sorry.
just come like at 6 or 6:15?
Let's say quarters,
Quarter to 6.
Bake sale.
just to be safe. Is that okay with everybody?
I mean, worst case scenario, you could always adjourn that work session, have the public hearing and go back into it. I know
I
it's
have no
complicated,
before
but,
No, that's
Can you
fine.
not
Six-
see my
Keep it simple.
stash?
5:45,
Thank you.
so I'll just put it down as a work session,
okay.
water sewer discussion. That what?
Yep,
5:45?
yep.
Bake sale.
Beeps
Bake sale. How do you come up with money? Bake sale.
from the
Okay,
aquifer.
anything else? I think.
From the aquifer. Chromium brownies. Mmm, my favorite.
Oh.
Okay,
I
I'll
learned
make
a
a
lot.
motion to adjourn, second by George. All in favor?
Aye.